Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined as always by Scott Bogman and by Pat Fitzmaurice. And fellas, we are continuing our series of running through some rankings and tiers for every position. We have done the running backs, we have done the receivers. We are now doing both quarterbacks and tight ends within the same episode. So we're not going like 50 names deep, obviously, for these positions. We're going to go 4 tiers deep on each position. And that's going to get us to 29 quarterbacks, 28 tight ends. Obviously, for these positions, as we get later, especially on the tight end side, we'll kind of move pretty quickly through some of those names. We're going to go through the same way we've done with the running backs and receivers, though, tier by tier, kind of reacting to the guys we think are too high, too low, just right, where you two disagree with each other, all that fun stuff. And we're going to start with the quarterbacks. Before we jump in, Fitz, how do you feel about these positions as opposed to running back and receiver, which are like the more backbone of, in super flex, obviously quarterback's important, but in general, running back and receivers, like you're going to have the most discussion. There's the most names. They are the backbone of the dynasty roster. How do you feel like approaching trying to get rankings and tiers for these more, I don't want to call them luxury positions, but kind of the more one-offs?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not luxury if you're doing super flex for quarterback or
For
tight
sure.
end premium, which has ramped up the importance of that position. So, yeah, I mean, you always feel like they're a little easier to dress uh, because you only have to start one of these guys. Well, at least in one QB dynasty
Yeah.
or one tight end. So in one QB dynasty, always ample supply, and it's almost hard to trade good quarterbacks if you have a glut of them. And it can be the same thing for tight ends, although it seems like no one is ever sitting on a bunch of good tight ends because there aren't many to go around.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the super flex versus one QB is very different, and we can maybe highlight this as we're going through our tiers. There are names that I think, even though all quarterbacks are more valuable in super flex, there are names that I am more interested in them in one QB. I think somebody like Anthony Richardson, if you're taking like a late round flyer on him, I would rather have in a league where he can be a differentiator as opposed to a league like super flex where like you need startable guys. And if he's bad, he's not startable. Where if he's good, he could be a needle mover in one QB. So he's pretty far down the list, but he's an example, the type of guy that even though they're all more valuable in the one format of Superflex, they can still kind of be more valuable relative to the other players of their position in maybe a one QB versus Superflex. What's your kind of approach when looking at these smaller, shorter list kind of rankings here, Bogman?
Yeah, I think they're just less granular, right? I think that it's specifically with quarterback. It's you know you get granular in your tiers and stuff. You can, but I think you pretty much know who's in and who's out in terms of who you can comfortably start. And like you said, it's much better to have a guy like Anthony Richardson as a risk with his floor and upside in a one QB league. But I mean, he could be the difference maker in a super flex, right? So I think with tight ends as well, it's not so much the position, just a lack of talent, near the top, or at least a lack of matching talent at the top. Like there's so much talent with Bowers and McBride, and there's another group, and then it kind of gets way less granular. So you kind of have to put guys into buckets and how you see them. So a little less work on these tiers, but yeah, there you do have to know where to draw your line for sure.
Let's dive in. Like I said, we're going to start with quarterbacks. Reminder for everybody, all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. You can navigate to our dynasty rankings from there as well. We might move a little quicker. I don't want to blow by any interesting conversations or names that we think are worth highlighting. We might move a little faster in this episode than the last couple just because there are 2 different positions to get through today. So if you feel like we're moving with a more speed in this one, that's why. But I don't want to just blow past some of these names either. QB tier 1 is 5 names. It's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. And I actually think this is a mistake that this is 1 tier. I think this should be 2 because I don't think anybody is making the case for Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts over any of the other 3. I do think Burrow and Hurts are very good and are deserving of being inside the top 5, but to me, you can maybe quibble with the order of the top 3. I find it very hard to be willing to be open to an argument for anybody other than those 3 being inside the top 3. And for my money, when I'm putting together tiers, if you can't really make an argument, in my opinion, for a guy at the back of the tier with the guy at the front of the tier, then they don't belong in the same tier. That's just how I personally approach it. Fitz, when you are coming up with your tiers at quarterback, do you also see it as a clear top three and there should be a separation there? Or do you think it's deserving to be a 5-man tier?
No, I agree with you, Worm. I have Burrow and Jalen Hurts in my second tier. And I think their value is maybe just a little more, it's not quite as multi-dimensional as the value of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Like Jalen Hurts derives so much of his value from those short touchdown runs. I mean, if they had banned the tush push, we would have had to really reassess the value of Jaden Daniel, or excuse me, of Jalen Hurts. So there's that, and he's a competent passer, but not a premier passer. Then there's Joe Burrow, who is a premier passer, but doesn't offer us a lot of that rushing potential. He's the only guy in the top 5 who doesn't really run, and doesn't have a great line either, which makes me a little worried about his near-term future. So, yeah, although the Bengals defense is probably going to cast them into a lot of shootouts this year. So, I mean, would not surprise me to see Burrow flirt with 5,000 passing yards, 40 touchdowns this year if he can stay healthy. That's another issue with him. He's had some minor injuries in the past. So I do agree, Worm. It's a clear top 3, and then I'm putting the other 2 guys in the next tier.
I think for me, Bogman, like in a Superflex startup, I'm not even remotely considering anybody other than a quarterback for those first 3. If I'm thinking between Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase, Jalen Hurts or Justin Jefferson, I'm probably going quarterback in a Superflex, but I'm at least thinking about it. I am weighing that decision. I'm not weighing any decision with those first 3 guys.
Yeah, I think um, if you want to talk about where these tiers lay, then fine. That's fine. But I'm with you guys 100%. A hard agree, which is strange in this industry. But I have those top 3 guys as the 3, and I think you can just knock the other 3 guys, because my next tier would be Burrow, Mahomes, and Hurts, and I think you can knock those 3 guys. Like Mahomes has not finished as a top 6 the last 2 years, right? 2022, he was the number 1 QB in points. So he's still right there. The talent is still there. He's not so much older than everybody here. Burrow doesn't run. Hurts isn't as good a passer as the rest of these guys. I think it's fair to say that about those 3 players. And the other top guys are the established top 3 that are passing well and running well and finishing high. So I think that is the separator in my tiers between the top 3 and the next 3. I would definitely not put them together.
Just before we get out of this tier, because again, we all love these players, but I do think it's interesting that you guys have a different number 1, and neither of you have Josh Allen. So for the record, if we were coming up, if I don't do rankings in the same way you guys do, if I actually might later this summer do some dynasty rankings, where I was talking to Blaine about that. So I might start being able to contribute to these in a different way going forward. But right now I don't do rankings. If I was doing them, I think I would actually have Josh Allen number 1. Neither of you has Allen. Bogman, you have Lamar Jackson number 1. And Fitz, you have Jaden Daniels. So there's disagreement between the 3 of us amongst who's number 1, even if, of course, we all agree on who the top 3 are. Bobby, why don't you make the case for why you have Lamar ahead of these other 2, even if obviously you see them as close and they're all awesome?
We talked about this a little bit, I think a couple months ago in the rankings episode. But for me, I think Lamar is going to be able to age gracefully. I think he's going to be able to ratchet back the running and pass well. I think you could run an offense that is an air raid with Lamar Jackson right now if you wanted to. But why the hell would you take away his best weapon, which is running? So I think Lamar has maybe the best asset of being able to transition as he gets older out of all these 3 guys. Now, could he get hurt trying to run too much? He could. All 3 of these guys could, though. They're all runners. So I really like Lamar, and I think he's going to age gracefully.
Fitz, what about Jaden Daniels, who's your number 1? Is it just the age and the fact that he's 3 years younger than Lamar and 4 years younger than Allen? Or is there anything else to the profile of Daniels that sets him apart from those other 2 for you?
No, it's mostly the age. I mean, he has the potential to offer the same sort of dual run pass value that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have long offered. But Josh Allen recently turned 29. Lamar Jackson is 28 and a half. Jaden Daniels is 24 and a half. So that's basically it. I mean, we have an Olympic cycle separating Jaden Daniels from the other two guys in age.
To me, that's somewhat counterbalanced by the fact that the other guys have done it multiple years. And I like Daniels a lot. Again, obviously he'd be inside my top 3, but we have only seen it once. I don't even though I thought he did a good job last year. I don't love Cliff Kingsbury as a long-term offensive coordinator for him. And I do wonder at his size if at a younger age than maybe other running quarterbacks, they kind of try to get him to run less often. Even though that is what helps make him an elite quarterback is his ability to run. He's just so thin that it worries me about him getting hurt and the team dialing back on that a bit. Where somebody like Josh Allen, like I think Josh Allen is going to rumble in for close goal to go rushing touchdowns for the next 8 years still. Like that's just the way he's kind of built and the way he plays. So that gives me an extra degree of confidence as a runner. But that is nitpicking, right? Like we all love all 3 of these guys. So I think we can just probably go ahead and move on from this tier because we all love them. Next tier, so you guys have Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts a tier down. The other guys that are in kind of the consensus ECR tiers, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, quarterback 6, quarterback 7, quarterback 8. You guys have these guys in a different order. The biggest discrepancy between the two of you is actually on Bo Nix. Fitz, you are 3 spots below consensus on Nix. Bogman, you are a spot ahead of consensus on Nix. So I'll start with you on this one, Bogman. Why do you like Bo Nix better than the consensus?
I mean, I think Bo Nix showed last season he was way undervalued coming into the league. I think we hold on to that a little bit too much sometimes, specifically in dynasty rankings. He came in, he was outstanding. I think there's meat on the bone in terms of a passer because he didn't have great weapons. I think obviously the rushing game was horrific for the Broncos last season, and that's why the whole running back look has changed on this team. You go and draft RJ Harvey and you sign J.K. Dobbins to kind of completely change this. And the offensive line is great. The defense is great. I think there's just a lot of upside here with Bo Nix. So, I wouldn't say that I'm crazy high on him. 1 spot ahead of consensus, though. I like him and I like Drake May. I like both those guys moving forward.
Fitz, for you on Bo Nix, is it like what is keeping him lower? Because
why do you hate him?
Well,
that's the
I
question.
mean, he's obviously younger than the other guys in this tier, which mattered to you when we're talking about those top 3. But now he's kind of falling a little below. Now there are some younger guys who are also ahead of him that you just have that we haven't gotten to yet that are in a lower tier in consensus. So that's probably part of it. But is there anything about Bo Nix that I mean? Do you think this is just kind of like not that you're not moving off your priors, but like we did have a certain opinion of him prior to last season, and it's only been 1 season of him kind of proving a lot of us wrong in terms of his fantasy ranking. You have him QB 11. It's not like it's crazy low. He's still QB 1 for you, but what goes into that decision to have him multiple spots below consensus?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I shouldn't. I actually have him, I think, 1 spot higher in redraft rankings, QB 10. So I do like Bo Nix. I like that he's working with Sean Payton, who, just Bo Nix came out of college as this guy who was known for sort of like being a master of the short passing game. And Sean Payton had been with Drew Brees for almost the entirety of Drew Brees' career. So just seemed like a really good match here. And, Nix, I think he proved to us that there were some maybe flaws with him as a prospect, but he started a lot of games in college and he was ready to hit the ground running, man, when he got into the NFL. So I'm not too worried about him. And maybe I should have him ahead of CJ Stroud. Right now, I have CJ Stroud ranked higher. Like I was so blown away by Stroud's rookie year and how good it was. And I really believe that the drop off last year was more attributable to how bad Stroud's offensive line was than anything with Stroud himself. But unfortunately, Stroud's offensive line looks like it's going to be awful again this year. So maybe I have to start baking that into the dynasty rankings and should have Nix higher.
When you're thinking about any quarterback, really, how much is situation playing a role in your evaluation? Because we have talked before, a guy like CJ Stroud made Houston a good situation. Obviously, you just mentioned the offensive line was an issue, but like when he was drafted, there was a lot of concerns about him from the dynasty perspective of like, oh boy, the Texans are a dumpster fire. And he made them look a lot better than they were. I had kind of similar expectations for Drake May, who's another name we'll get to once we get into tier 3. But when you're looking at somebody like Justin Herbert, Doesn't have the best pass catchers, but we think it's now a really strong coach as opposed to when he was first hired. Doesn't have the best offensive coordinator for, we would think, a fantasy skill set, but, really talented player. Patrick Mahomes has, doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore. Travis Kelce getting older. When you're looking at guys like, let's say Mahomes and Herbert, because they're in this tier 2, and they have both been tier 1 quarterbacks in the past, but are now consensus down in tier 2. Is it situation that's dragging them down? Do you think either of these guys, Bogman, can get back into tier 1 moving forward?
Absolutely. I mean, I think specifically for Mahomes, was the number 1 quarterback in 2022. So if they just decide to pass the ball a little bit more and give him a little more responsibility, then yes, I think Patrick Mahomes can easily get right back in there. Justin Herbert, I think that is the system. I think Greg Roman as your OC, Jim Harbaugh as your head coach is going to be mainly a run first outfit. That's just what he has done throughout his career. I think that's why Fitz and I are going to end up being a little bit lower on a guy like Justin Herbert, is because we know this seems to be capped by the scheme a little bit. I mean, Justin Herbert you still want to bank on the skill over the system, right? Because in the NFL, they will build around what works. So if Herbert works, they'll start passing the crap out of the ball if that's what's working. But I think for the most part, the Chargers are going to strive to run the ball.
Yeah, can I weigh in on Herbert real fast?
Yes, you can, but I want to frame it with this question, Fitz. Who do you think has a better chance of jumping back into tier 1 between Mahomes and Herbert?
I think it's Mahomes, even though he's
Okay.
getting older.
So what is it about Herbert that keeps you from feeling that way?
And by the way, it's mainly because of the way, now for the first time in a couple of years, the Chiefs look like they're pretty deep, if we can count on good health at wide receiver. And like Andy Reid is openly talking about wanting to get the deep ball back into the Chiefs offense, which is encouraging. I mean, man, a couple of years ago, like anyone sitting on Patrick Mahomes in Dynasty had to be like 2 years ago, Mahomes was coming off a 5,000 yard, 41 touchdown season and just entering his prime. And you would be just, licking your chops if you had him on a dynasty roster. And then the last 2 years, right around 4,000 yards, under 30 touchdowns both years. So hopefully he can sort of get back to something close to where he was before. Herbert, everyone loves the tools, man. The guy's got a golden arm. He runs, he plays hurt, like intangibles, tools, everything is there, but they are going to be run heavy, as Boggs was saying, and it looks like Jim Harbaugh is pretty dug in with the Chargers. He's going to be there for a while. So, I mean, that marriage could last well into Justin Herbert's prime. He's 27 now, just getting into his, prime years, that age 27 to age 31 range. Herbert might not be
Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson,
yeah.
right
Herbert
there.
might not be decoupled from Harbaugh until he is out of that prime age range.
I think I'm a little more optimistic about their willingness to throw with Herbert than you guys are.
It's Greg Roman. You've watched the guy coach your offense for so long. You think he's going to turn into Don Coryell worm?
I think if they get better weapons for her, like I think they are smart football people who are going to say, like, listen, the golden ticket for us for winning big is Justin Herbert's arm. And if they get better weapons for him, like I do think they will recognize the value. Like Jim Harbaugh is a kooky guy. He's a smart guy too. Like I think he'll see what he has. And last year, as the running backs got worse, J.K. Dobbins second half of the year, they did throw more. Now they have Omarion Hampton, who we think is really good, so maybe they won't be trying to do that. And Greg Roman was doing that with early career Lamar, where running did probably make more sense, and Colin Kaepernick and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that they're definitely going to be like a top 5 pass heavy team in the offense or anything insane like that, but I think I'm a little more optimistic than you.
Well, that's why I was saying before, Worm, let's make sure we're not throwing away the skill because of the system, because in the NFL, if the passing is working better than the running, it doesn't matter what you usually call. You're going to call the plays that work, right? And like you said, when the run game didn't work last year, they passed the ball way heavier. But then what they do this offseason, they went and they drafted a running back in the first round. They signed a guy with 300 touches, and Herbert has been hurt when you let him run the ball. when you let him run the ball, he has gotten rib injuries and ankle injuries and all kinds of stuff. So I think that is going to lower the further his career goes as well. So, he could run better with these running backs. That's in the realm of possibility as well. Like he could just, have a clearer path to eat, and it might be easier for him to pick up yards running, but he has been injured when they let him run the ball.
And let me be clear. I think they are going to be a run heavy team. I'm less pessimistic that it's going to be so far in that direction that it makes Herbert not able to be a successful fantasy quarterback. Fair. So that's kind of where I fall down on that. I do want to let everybody know about the Cheat Sheet Creator. It's your personal guide to perfect league-specific rankings. Visualize your path to victory as you add tiers and tag your busts, breakouts, or sleepers. Sync your league to craft custom rankings, ensuring every pick is strategic and tailored to your league settings. Sync your league and enter your draft with confidence using the Cheat Sheet Creator at fantasypros.com/sheet or on the Fantasy Football Draft Wizard app. I love talking Dynasty football with you guys, but it's funny. I'm like, we're going to move a little quicker through this episode. And it's 20 minutes in, we're spending all this time on Justin Herbert because I can't help myself. I like debating this stuff with you. Let's go to tier 3, which is a bigger one. It goes from QB9 to QB19. And this is from the expert consensus rankings. Goes from Drake May, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. So first of all, the fact that tier 3 has 11 names in it does kind of speak to the depth at the position. There are a lot of options for you to get as your second quarterback in a super flex league pulling out of this tier. And particularly, really the whole tier. There's a couple names that I'm not that interested in. Like Jared Goff is somebody that I'm not really paying that close attention to in Dynasty right now. Beyond that, a lot of these names, like I really see the case for liking taking them and seeing additional upside based on where they are. Right at the very top, though, you guys have all of these players either with consensus or ahead of consensus. Drake May, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud. Drake May is at the very top. You guys both have him inside your top 8. I would agree with that. We are all very, very high on Drake May. When you are looking at May, and Bogman, I'll start with you on this one, but I want to get both your opinions. Do you see somebody who you expect to be a tier 1 dynasty quarterback at some point in their career? Or do you think it's more, he should be higher than he is now, but he's not going to reach that level of ceiling?
No, I think he could be a QB1 right now. I think that could easily happen. Like if Stephon Diggs is good to go from the jump and Kyle Williams establishes himself, he has a nice pass catching back in Travion Henderson now. Defense is still getting fixed in New England. Yeah, with his rushing upside, Drake May could be a QB1 this year. It's not out of the realm possibility. Is it a little soon to ask him that? Maybe. It could be. But I think he's going to be outstanding. And I don't like him nearly as much as Fitzy does. So I think that he could easily be a QB1.
Do you think, do you see Fitz a tier 1 dynasty quarterback when you look at Drake May, who, by the way, is the second youngest player we're talking about today on the quarterback side, behind only JJ McCarthy?
I think he gets there. I'm maybe less confident than Bogman is, though. Like, I don't think it's fait accompli that he does, in fact, become a QB1.
I thought you said QB1, not tier.
No, tier 1.
But
yeah.
Tier 1.
I think tier 1, I still think he could be this year. I think is a lot to ask. I think you need to get some weapons in there, but I think he could definitely be in tier.
I mean,
1 too.
The drum that I've been beating all off season is that he has major rushing upside. Like he was pacing for, based on his starts last year, if you take out week 18 where he played one series, averaged like almost 40 rushing yards a game. It would have worked out to 650 rushing yards over a full season. But I think there's more upside on that based on what he did in college, and certainly more upside than just the 2 touchdown runs he had last year, since he had 16 in 26 college starts. So I think he does have rushing upside, not far off from what we get out of Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And yeah, the passing work in progress, but he just looked so poised and in command last year. And it's one of those things, like, I don't try to pass myself off as a scout, but he just had that presence and that command that, like, you felt pretty confident about his ability to make throws last year. And he was doing it with, like, Demario Douglas as his best wide receiver. Now he's got Diggs, he's got Kyle Williams, and I'm sure there's more help on the way in the years to come. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
better coaching staff. I also think like, and I think there's been some, I don't know if it's just been like people speculating or actual reporting to this effect, but there's been talk that like he would have run more last year, but they knew it was a lost season where they weren't trying to win games. So don't waste your runs. Don't risk getting hurt. Like if they are thinking it can help them win, I wouldn't be surprised to see him like there's more upside on the rushing, I think, than even what we saw last year, which was really encouraging
Can I
from that
can I
standpoint.
piggyback on that? Like, yeah, I think in scrambling yards, he was second only to, I want to say, Jaden Daniels last year. Almost all scrambling and not designed runs. Like he had almost nothing on designed runs. They didn't want to draw up runs for him last year. That's going to become part of the Patriots playbook in the future, and that's going to add to the rushing upside.
That's why we like to coming out of North Carolina. You watch
Yep.
them play, and it's if it ain't there, I'm tucking it. I'm going. I'm picking up as many as I
Really
can.
aggressive runner.
So we all love May. We all would have him inside our top 8 very easily. Fitz has got him at QB6. Where are we at on Caleb Williams? You guys are in line with consensus, so there's not a discrepancy here, but I do think it's worth just hitting on him briefly. Fitz, Caleb, obviously this huge superstar prospect coming into the NFL. Really disappointing first year. He has Ben Johnson. It feels like it's a better situation with the offensive line, clearly. Do you think he's more likely to move up from QB10 or down from QB10 in consensus rankings this time next year? Because there's so many names, and the ones ahead of him are pretty good, but it's also clear there's more upside here.
I think up is the more likely direction for his ranking. He was my QB1 coming out of college. I did like him more than Jaden Daniels. I still think there's a lot of potential. He's great at making plays off script. The question is whether he can be a great quarterback on script, and that's what Ben Johnson wants him to be. And I was just reading an article somewhere about how Ben Johnson was yelling at him in OTAs for not working through progressions quickly enough. And like he is going to try to work that into him, but I do think he has the tools to do that. He has some running ability, which is going to help his fantasy value. I mean, I guess there is that little bit of doubt about whether he can be um, like sort of the robo quarterback you sometimes have to be as an NFL player and not just the, improvisational king that he was at USC. But then there are the throws, man. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that. Otherwise, just hideous, unsightly Thursday night game between the Bears and the Seahawks last year that I think wound up like 10-3 or 6. It
So
was
bad.
so bad. But one of the throws that Caleb made in that game where he was like scrambling around, throws across his body, and just throws this unbelievable dart to Romo Dunze in the end zone that wound up getting called back for a holding penalty. But like it was one of those throws where I mean it brought me off my couch. It was just so dazzling. And he's got that kind of ability, just a matter of putting it all together. And now it seems like he's got the infrastructure with the upgraded weaponry and offensive line, a terrific offensive play caller and choreographer. It's just a matter of whether he can be that guy and play more disciplined.
Bogman.
Yeah, I mean, I have him in a tier. I have a tier from 7 to 11. It's Nix, May, Herbert, Williams, and Stroud. That's my next tier after Burrow, Hurts, Mahomes. So 7 to 11, I think that's the next wave of guys that are going to be pushing into this group. I think Caleb Williams is firmly in there. We saw a terrible year with a awful decision to keep Matt Eberflus, who wasn't helping Caleb Williams at all. They redid this offensive system halfway through the year, and he didn't look much better. It was a complete mess last year. Let's get him a real play caller in here. These weapons are amazing. I mean, he has all the upside in the world. I think this whole group does. CJ Stroud included. Yes, down on CJ Stroud overall from last season, but he still has it. We saw him display it. So Nix, May, Herbert, Williams, Stroud, I think they're all that next group to push in to the top of QB1 in the top tiers.
I want to spend a little extra time on this tier because I think it's a really critical tier in Superflex drafts. This is like the tier that, if you get it right, will really set you up nicely for your Dynasty League for years to come. So I want to ask, like, who are the guys in this tier that you think are undervalued? I think we're all going to be in agreement that somebody like Jared Goff is maybe a little overvalued. Losing Ben Johnson, he's older, he doesn't run. Baker Mayfield, we're expecting some touchdown regression. also on the wrong side of 30. Dak Prescott, another older guy that you guys are below consensus on. But who do you most feel confident in that is a value right now? Is it somebody like Jordan Love, Fitz? Is it somebody like Brock Purdy, who's maybe underlooked just because of the draft pedigree, but has been good and is in a great system? Is it the upside with JJ McCarthy or Trevor Lawrence? Fitz, I'll start with you. Who's the guy that stands out to you that this is the value I want to be targeting in startup drafts or in trades right now in this range?
I think you just touched on the four guys, Worm. Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy. Trevor Lawrence, can he turn the corner now that he's working with Liam Cohen and has this dynamic duo wide receiver with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter? JJ McCarthy, who we have not seen take an NFL snap yet, but also gets the benefit of playing for a brilliant offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell and playing with great weaponry, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. And he runs. So, but Love and Purdy are kind of the interesting ones. I mean, injuries were such a story for him in 2024. He sprains the MCL in week 1, misses 2 games, then comes back, and it wasn't long after that he had a groin injury that I think was hampering him for much of the season. Packers were the 3rd run heaviest team in the league last year. So this was the guy who had taken Green Bay on that crazy postseason run a year earlier and looked like he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I don't think we have a totally good handle on exactly what his ceiling is for fantasy. Like, I think Jordan Love is one of the hardest guys to assess for dynasty of any quarterback. And then Purdy is just maybe underrated. Maybe it's the lack of draft pedigree as the former Mr. Irrelevant, but I mean, now that they have paid him and
Who cares?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but he's actually really good. Like, he's a good quarterback, plays in a really good offense, and adds a little bit of rushing value too. So I think Purdy tends to be underrated. Like, I mean, it is a travesty that Purdy is behind Baker Mayfield on this list. I mean, come on,
I think so
dude, Baker Mayfield, like, had never thrown 30 touchdown passes in a season, goes over 40 last year with a ridiculously high touchdown rate. And like, anyone expecting a repeat, and now Tristan Wirfs is going to open the season on PUP, like, there is a crash coming for Baker Mayfield, I fear.
It's funny because I look at these rankings and I'm like, I wouldn't have Purdy behind Kyler Murray, but I can at least understand the justification for that ranking. And if you want to make an upside case for Kyler, I'm willing to hear it. I don't understand a case to be made for Baker Mayfield. It's a great call out. Like, I don't understand why he's ranked 13th here with some of the names that are behind him.
Love the guy. I mean, he's a baller, but this is just ridiculous. Coming off this massive career year. And even rushing, he had like, 100
and you add Igbuka and you get a healthy Chris Godwin back. Like, I think people just see the health of this offense being better this year and going, well, why can't he be better?
Right. Great season, and the pass catching weaponry is even better. I get it, but man, like, there is regression coming for Mr. Mayfield.
It's funny. I have a super flex league that I'm in where I have 3 quarterbacks. It's CJ Stroud, it's Jordan Love, and it's JJ McCarthy. And they're all in this tier. And like, on the one hand, I'm like, that's a great group of 3. I'm really excited to have that in Superflex. On the other hand, I'm like, you can kind of see the case against them. Like, if Stroud really never runs, the offensive line stays bad. Jordan Love, you just laid out the case, Fitz, that we don't really know what to do with him. And McCarthy is essentially a rookie here, even though he's in a great situation. So again, it's such an interesting tier to have multiple guys in and see the way it pans out. To wrap up this tier, Bogman, I'll ask you the same question I asked Fitz. Who's the guy that stands out to you that's most undervalued?
I think it's JJ McCarthy. And I think you could pick any name out of this group. And I just got done on the Deep Sleeper show with myself and Welsh and John Daigle talking about JJ McCarthy. But this is the stat that I keep coming back to in terms of what the QB situation can be like going from anywhere else to Minnesota, right? And this is because Sam Darnold, his finishes before going to Minnesota last year were 27, 27, 29, 28, 36, 55. He didn't do anything with the Niners the year before going to Minnesota. And then he was QB9. And this is because they're a pass-heavy system. They have great targets. They have a strong offensive line. McCarthy is plugged into all of that. And he has way more rushing upside than Sam Darnold. So I think, is there a possibility that JJ McCarthy just looks miserable and is not the QB of the future for the Vikings? Yes, of course. He's a risk. We haven't seen him play at all. But You take a guy that was a journeyman that was kind of lost, you plug him in to Minnesota, and he works great. It's hard to see that that won't work for a first round talent in JJ McCarthy. So I think he's being a little bit underrated because we haven't seen him. He's coming off a major injury. And Sam Darnold really took a nosedive at the end of last season as well. So I think he's being ignored a little bit too much, but I really like him.
Tier 4 goes from quarterback 20 to 29. This will be the last tier we talk about for this position today. Michael Penix Jr., Cam Ward, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Jackson Dart, Anthony Richardson, Matthew Stafford. Obviously, there's not a ton of downside when you get this late in the rankings. It's more about finding guys with upside. I do think you can look at it in terms of long-term upside and short-term. Like, for example, we're lower on Geno. You guys are both lower than consensus on him. I do think there's short-term upside. If you're a contender, I think it's worth considering him as a trade if you really have a need at QB2 and you want to try and win this year. Somebody like that's interesting. But what we're really looking at with these rankings and tiers is guys that we think can elevate a tier or 2 tiers between now and this time next year. And those are just naturally going to be the younger guys where we see the more upside. So those are the guys at the top of this tier. It's Michael Penix Jr., it's Cam Ward, it's Justin Fields, it's Bryce Young. These are the guys that one or both of you are higher than consensus on. Of those first 4, again, Michael Penix Jr., Cam Ward, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Bogman, who is your favorite to take a leap this season?
I mean, I think it's tough for me to decide between Fields and Ward. I think I'd have to say Fields because we've already seen him a little bit. We know the rushing upside is insane. And if he starts every game, he could easily be a top 10 QB with that rushing upside. So we know what's there. Cam Ward, I'm interested in because I really like what Callahan did with Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati offense. And I think he wants to bring a similar feel to Tennessee. Cam Ward has been so good at every stop. And this is a guy that's worked with multiple offensive coordinators in college. So coming into a new system is nothing new for him. He's been doing this his entire collegiate career. So I'm really excited to see what Cam Ward has. So those are the 2 out of this group, both young with a ton of upside that stand out to me above the rest.
I would ask you the same question, Fitz, but I already know what your answer is going to be because I've done enough shows with you. So instead of asking you, let me just tell you to talk about Michael Penix Jr.
It's actually not. I was going to say Cam Ward.
What?
Worm. Yeah.
Wow. I'm stunned by that. You love Michael
You know
Penix
what's
Jr.
crazy, Worm? I just have to point this out, that Fitz and I on this show spent the entire offseason debating Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and we have them ranked in the exact same spots now. After post-draft, we have them in the same spot after we spent the whole offseason arguing.
Well, easier to move Shedeur down after what happened.
Of course.
But yeah, it is funny. So Fitz, please tell me why it's Ward and not Penix, because I'm really stunned by this.
All right. And I will talk briefly about Penix, but Ward, my major reservation with him as a prospect was about sometimes the occasional recklessness with the way he just holding the ball too long to try to make hero plays, sometimes getting loose with his handle on the football, things that aren't necessarily detriments to his fantasy value. But now I'm just getting more optimistic, reading about how he has just become a guy they literally have to kick him out of the team facility now because he is in there early in the morning and late at night, already assuming a leadership role. Everything you read about this guy is oh yeah, this guy is driven to succeed in the NFL. So I'm starting to get more bullish on Cam Ward. I love Penix too. Ward offers rushing upside. Penix really does not, even though Penix has a pretty good 40 time. You don't want Penix to run. This guy's already had some major injuries in college. You
want him to beat Joe Burrow.
Yeah, but I do think the upside for him, and I don't even know about Burrow, Boggs, but I would say Jared Goff is probably the upside.
Okay.
And that sounds like damning him with faint praise, but Jared Goff has had 5 4,000-yard passing seasons. Jared Goff has had 5 seasons with 28 or more touchdown passes. That's what I think you can get from Michael Penix, a guy who just reliably strings together really good passing numbers year after year without a lot of rushing upside.
I want to get your guys' opinion before we wrap up quarterbacks on Bryce Young, who's the last of those 4 that you guys didn't mention. One of the more fun second half stories last season went from looking like an all-time bust to maybe a capable NFL starter and a guy who actually like ran enough to be helpful in fantasy in a lot of weeks in the second half last season. He adds a first round wide receiver that I really liked. There's he's paired up with Dave Canales, who's his quarterback whisperer. So do we think Bryce Young is somebody that, I don't know if I want to say undervalued, because there's just so many talented quarterbacks ranked ahead of him that it's not like I think he should be ranked, several spots higher than QB 23. But is he somebody that you are, a lot more interested in and see continued upside for? Or do you think the leap we saw in the middle of last season is him getting closer to his ceiling and there's not much more to go, just given the height and some of the other limitations that we already knew about Bogman?
I think this is it for him and Anthony Richardson. I'll put them in the same bucket, right? Like I think Bryce Young and and the opinion on them could not be more opposite right now, right? Because Richardson's still recovering. Seems like Daniel Jones is kind of taking the reins. But I keep saying this point, like if you're Steichen, if you're Ballard, if you're in charge of this pick, don't you want to dress it up like Anthony Richardson came from behind and won this job, and you boost his confidence going into the season? So I think maybe a little bit of that is narrative based. But in terms of Bryce Young, I think we're all looking at the positive finish from last season and saying, well, look, if we get more of that, then he's just the guy. Maybe we should be a little bit higher on him. But if it goes the other way, if he reverts even a little bit back, now we have a quarterback issue, and we have some good quarterbacks coming out next year. And the Panthers defense, while much improved, is not going to keep them out of picking in the top 10, most likely next season. So I think Bryce Young is teetering. I think he is one of those guys that we expect to take the improvement because we saw it last year, but it could easily revert and slide back and then be in a situation where maybe someone is pushing him next year. So I think him and Richardson I put in the same bucket of this is it. I think we're more positive. We think Bryce Young is going to make it. We think Richardson isn't, but that could easily flip during the season.
Fitz, what do you think about Bryce Young before we move off quarterback?
Yeah, Bryce Young is like the swimming pool. I don't want to dive in because it might be frigid. I sort of want to wade in down the stairs. Yeah. But like I'm generally optimistic. Like the upturn we saw late last year was pretty encouraging, and like it was going to take some time, but it seems like Dave Canales is once again working his magic with a quarterback. Now they gave him Teteroa McMillan, which is fantastic. So cautiously optimistic. I do know, Worm, that like I was kicking myself for a long time for taking Bryce Young over CJ Stroud in a Dynasty rookie draft a couple of years ago. And suddenly I don't feel completely terrible about that decision anymore.
There's still a pretty sizable gap between the
two. Oh,
two.
yeah. I mean, it was still probably the wrong decision, but it feels less ridiculous than it did.
It's now like, oh, that was a bad decision, and not like, am I bad at this job because I made a decision?
Yes,
like,
exactly. Exactly.
By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract, and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. I don't know if you guys can tell from the lighting, but it's gotten very dark and like windy outside my house. And
did I just hear some thunder there too?
It looks like it's coming, and rain's starting to fall. So hopefully I don't lose power during the storm or anything like that. But you could tell, like you can even see in the lighting, like at least from my perspective, because I usually have this great Denver sun, and now it's like I'm just getting lit by the computer screen. It got really dark out really fast. All right, so we'll try and survive through the tight end section of the show without me losing power here. We're gonna do 4 tiers here as well. We'll probably move a little faster because unlike a Superflex format, there's not like a 2 tight end format you might need to worry about. Maybe tight end premium, of course, can make these guys more valuable, but by and large, you're just really gonna have one of these guys as kind of your key fantasy, dynasty tight end on any given roster. Tier 1, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta. Not gonna surprise anybody the names that are there, given the talent, the production, and of course the age. Do you guys think there's like a case to be made for Bowers being in his own tier, or do you think it's right to have McBride and Laporta here, Fitz?
I do think there's a really good case for Bowers here. Now, I know the Raiders were among the leaders in dropbacks last year, and some people think that kind of skewed Bowers' numbers. But even if the Raiders throw a little bit less this year, I think the quality of targets is going to be better with Geno Smith there and with more capable offensive design from Chip Kelly. And I think, he was just clearing his throat last year, and we might get the aria from Brock Bowers in the next year or two. Like, he is probably the best tight end prospect ever. And I thought it was a suitable debut for him last year, but I do not think the elevator has hit the top floor yet.
And for as great as he is, he's also the second youngest guy inside of our top 3 tiers. The only younger player is Colston Loveland. That's amongst the guys in the top 3 tiers. So he's really, really good, and also still is young and has his path
He
forward.
was
I mean,
a
go ahead.
monster as an 18-year-old freshman at Georgia, a monster in the NFL as a 21-year-old rookie. Like, he just keeps smashing through the age barrier.
His quarterbacks last year for Brock Bowers were Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I mean, I don't think Geno Smith is a great quarterback, but he's way better than both of those guys.
And like in redraft, I actually am considering McBride like at the very like close to even with him, and I might even have more interest in McBride depending on the scoring format. Like I really like McBride a lot. There's a 3-year age gap between the two of them. And McBride's not old, but
Right.
that if Bowers is already probably the best tight end in football and is also one of the youngest guys here, and has a quarterback upgrade like Boggs just alluded to. I don't think you're going to see anybody that ranks anybody other than Bowers as Dynasty tight end 1. And if that's the case, like maybe he should be in his own tier. I do really like McBride and Laporta. Are these the right 2 names, Bogman, to be in the tier if there are going to be 3 in this tier?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you separate it, Laporta wouldn't go in there for me. I would have it Bowers, then McBride in his own tier, then whatever, however else you want to establish it. But it's those 2 and then everybody else. If you want to separate those 2, I'm completely fine with it. But you would say that McBride is the number 1 target in Arizona, even with Marvin Harrison Jr. there. That's kind of what we showed last season. Can that change? Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. immensely talented, but could also go the other way. Maybe adding this weight is not going to help Marvin Harrison. So we could see a little bit more. We also have touchdown equity to consider with Trey McBride as well. That's going to get better. So, these are both studs. I think Bowers needs to go about a round higher than McBride, but they're both elite tight ends.
Laporta, Fitz, do you think he belongs? Not maybe in the same conversation as Bowers, but like if you have to pick a third name in the tier, is it Laporta for you, or would it be somebody else?
Yeah, I debated whether he belongs in the top tier. I think he does. His usage got yo-yoed a little bit last year. No doubt the emergence of Jameson Williams has taken some targets off his plate, but I do think he belongs. He's been great as a rookie, and then a little bit of regression last year, but he was still pretty good. And Boggs, is the touchdown thing going to get better for Trey McBride?
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Yes,
I keep hearing that, but the dude has scored
Stop.
6 touchdowns in 49 NFL games. And
Fitz.
then, by the way, Boggs, in his final year in college, he had 1 touchdown, 90 catches, 1 touchdown. Like,
Fitz, would you like to bet? Let's bet on this because Dawson Knox had the same thing. Dawson Knox didn't catch a touchdown in college. He didn't catch 1, and he had like 9 his first season or whatever it was. Maybe it was 6. It was a bunch his first season. Touchdowns are they're weird, right? They're finicky. You cannot count on them at all. So I think it's eye rolling. I think the TD thing is eye rolling. Now listen. If it happens again this year, I'll be on your side. Okay. I will completely flip flop and move forward with a whole nother season of limited touchdown production. I just cannot see it continue.
All right. How about we'll set the over under at 7 and we'll call it
I'll take
it a push if it ends on 7.
Fine. Easy.
All
I'll
right.
take the over.
All right. We'll
It's
figure out
funny.
the stakes later.
I was going to set you up, Fitz, with now I know you're going to push back on that point about Trey McBride and the touchdowns, but I was wrong last
Didn't have
time.
to.
I said I know exactly what you're going to say, and so I'm a little gun shy
I
about it
just
now.
barged through that gate like a rodeo bull before you could say anything.
Last question on this tier: tight end premium, super flex, startup draft. Brock Bowers, first round pick, Trey McBride, second round pick. Does that sound right to you guys in that scenario?
Yes.
Brock Bowers definitely first. McBride bumping up against
First. Where in the first for Bowers? At what pick are you saying, even though it's super flex, it's a full PPR, it's tight end premium, like Bowers is just too good to pass up? For me, it's after those first three quarterbacks, Jamar Chase, and then maybe Justin Jefferson. He's at least in my head as a possibility at pick 5, probably more like pick 6 or 7 for me, honestly. But I don't want to be taking these other elite receivers or running backs or non-tier 1 quarterbacks. I think he is that separated from the pack at tight end. And again, so young. Like, if you could draft Travis Kelce knowing he's going to be Travis Kelce for the next decade in a tight end premium, you're taking him in the top 5 overall, right? Like, that's where I'm taking Bowers, I think.
Yeah, the conversation starts at number 5, but just people do need to remember tight end premium does not mean tight ends are 150% more valuable than there. It's more like 120% more valuable. It's about a 20% value boost to the tight ends.
If you want whatever your QB bucket is of the top, if you want to put him immediately after that, that's fine to me. So to me, that's 7. Pick 7. I wouldn't take him ahead of Mahomes. I wouldn't take him ahead of Hurts. But the other 4 QBs,
top 3 QBs, Chase, and I'm probably still taking Justin Jefferson.
I think me too. I think Chase and Jefferson. So in that scenario, he would be picked
Jefferson. Yeah, I think it's like whatever the number of quarterbacks is that you're comfortable with, because Superflex, like, that's your own approach. But of the non-quarterbacks in that format, Chase definitely over Bowers. Jefferson to me is a toss-up. I'd probably lean Jefferson, but I'm considering it. I don't think anybody else I'm even considering. I think he's the third.
If you want to take him over Chase or Jefferson, I understand it. I don't think I would do it. I wouldn't pull the trigger, but I
couldn't do it on Chase. I would respect the heck out of it if I saw somebody do it, but Chase is so darn good. Let's go to tier 2 amongst the tight ends. A little bit bigger tier. This to me is similar to what tier 3 was for the quarterbacks, where this is like where you're really gonna kind of like make or break your team. If you're tight end, for as much as it can make or break a team, this is where it's really interesting to me and trying to get it right. There's some age here. There's older veterans. There's also some rookies. It's an interesting group. Goes from tight end 4 to tight end 10. George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mark Andrews, Tucker Kraft, David Njoku. So I don't really know where I want to start with this, and I'll kind of let you lead it. Fitz, you can go first here. Do you want to kind of highlight the rookies? Do you want to highlight maybe like the breakout potential of an Njoku or a Kraft? Do you want to look at these veterans who are over 30, like Andrews, Hawkinson, Kittle? What's most interesting to you in this tier?
I'm just going to say that my tier 2 personally is just Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, and George Kittle. And then there is a huge tier 3 for me. So I think we do have to put the rookies there as, rookies with mid first round draft capital. And I was pretty steadfastly Loveland ahead of Warren and felt vindicated when he went ahead of Warren in the draft. But now, like, Warren, the possibilities with him are kind of growing on me, even though no one likes the quarterback situation in Indianapolis. But just because of the youth and the, those guys have long careers ahead of them and are both really good prospects. So I think they do deserve sort of to be there with themselves. And Kittle is just such a monster. I mean, he has averaged, like, he's done it year in, year out for 7 years.
Still a tight end 1 last year.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at half point PPR earlier today. Over the last 7 years, he's averaged 12.2 fantasy points per game in half point PPR. That's exactly what Brock Bowers averaged last year. And Kittle has done that for 7 years.
Kittle is very much like if you're a contender, great. And if you're not, look to trade him. Like, he's kind of in that Derrick Henry conversation of just given the age, like this is kind of an easy calculus of deciding what to do with him. I really like both Warren and Loveland. Loveland, I didn't have a real separation between either of them before the draft. I think just given the landing spot and more certainty at quarterback and play caller, like I think you have to have Loveland ahead of Warren now, but they're obviously both really good. Obviously the age too. They're both really good. Bogman, do you see it as a tier within a tier the way Fitz has it, or do you have more of these guys in your tier too?
I have 3 to 7 in my tier here because I put
Yeah.
Laporta, below Bowers and McBride. So I have Laporta, Loveland, Warren, Kittle, and Hawkinson. So it's kind of, your upside plays in Loveland and Warren. You know what you're getting from Laporta and Hawkinson. And then, as you mentioned, Worm, Kittle is kind of if you're a contender, you want him. If you're not, you're trading him away for value. So pretty easy tier to me here.
Hawkinson's an interesting one. He just turned 28 a week ago, and tight ends often do kind of age a little better just in terms of like the great ones get good later. And
They have
so,
to make it. That's the thing.
yeah.
Like tight ends, you either grow old and you're really good, or you're out of the league real fast and
So
replaced, or you're stuck in a role of blocking and that's it.
I wonder if maybe we're looking past Hawkinson as a dynasty option, especially if you consider that he's now another year removed from that late season knee injury he had at the end of it was 2023, right? I think so. Like now you kind of get like this full off season. There's a chance. I know he's got what is essentially a rookie quarterback, but we really like the system. We like the potential of the quarterback. There's a chance he's the number 2 option in this passing game. Like I know you really like Jordan Addison Fitz, but like Hawkinson's at least in that conversation for a number 2 option in this passing game behind Justin Jefferson. I wonder if like even if he's at the bottom of the tier, I wonder if he does maybe belong at the back end of tier 2, and we're kind of overlooking him just because he was coming back off injury last year. Is there any legitimacy to that argument, Fitz, or because you have him well below consensus? You got him tight at 9.
Yeah, 28, as you pointed out, Worm just turned 28. We know he's going to have the fierce target competition with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. We think that JJ McCarthy is going to be a good NFL quarterback, but don't know for sure. And if McCarthy does have some early career struggles, that's going to hurt Hawkinson. And that injury, man, that was ACL and what was that also MCL? I think it
I
was
forget.
multiple ligaments.
Yeah, it was a bad injury
It was a
though.
really bad.
I think it was a bunch of them.
Yeah. So I'm just worried, like, is he athletically still the same guy after that?
Bogman, what do you think? But just quickly on Hawkinson, because I know you kind of agree with me, at least in terms of your tier. You have him at the bottom of tier 2, but what's your kind of approach with him right now in drafts?
Yeah, I think he's fine. I think he is definitely third, though, like you said. So I think that caps his upside. It is definitely Jefferson. It's Addison, and if you want to say he's fourth behind the run game, I think that it's safe to say that as well. But he's still going to score a bunch of touchdowns. Like I think he is a nice target for the end zone, and he's going to have a decent floor of targets as well. And I think he's going to improve the further he gets away from this knee injury. So good enough last year coming off of it to show me that I feel like he's going to improve.
Tucker Kraft at tight end 8, you guys both agree on right about where he is in ECR, just one spot higher. Mark Andrews, I think, is interesting. I actually think there's a chance that we are looking past him in the short term right now. And again, it's almost similar to Kittle. They're only 2 years apart, but almost similar to Kittle, where, if you're in win now, I actually think he might be an interesting buy low for a contender. But I'm just so certain that Isaiah Likely is going to like be the guy going forward, that I think that's going to start this year. And really, like after this year, I would be really shocked if Andrews is tight end 1 in Baltimore anymore. It would really take Lamar saying like, this is my guy, and like pounding the table to keep him, I think, for that change not to happen. But I think we might be overlooking him a little bit for like a win now this year type of team. And then Njoku's a guy who's been super athletic, his whole career. And it just, it's worked when he had Joe Flacco, who loves throwing to tight ends, but obviously quarterback situations there. So I think it's like probably like the right group of names to be in this range. Not saying tier 2, but just in terms of this like low end tight end 1, type of a guy. Fitz, there are other guys in tier 3 that you have ahead of them. But before we get to those names, when thinking about Mark Andrews, Tucker Kraft, David Njoku, does the order feel kind of right to you? How are you approaching those guys in this range?
Yeah, I mean, Kraft is interesting because he's still young. Like I know there's some people who strangely wonder if your guy Luke Musgrave Boggs is like if he's still might at some point pass Tucker Kraft. I feel like that's been decided already, and that Kraft.
I think
Yeah,
so too, and I'm a Musgrave guy. I was
yeah,
coming in. I think Kraft is just
yeah. I
better.
mean, he has a little bit of George Kittle in him after the catch, and plus he's got that ambiguous wide receiver situation in Green Bay that sort of helps with his target outlook. Yeah, I think the interesting conversation in this tier is with Kincaid and Pitts. Like, which guy would you two be more inclined to be patient with of those two? Like, who would you rather have right now, Kincaid or Pitts?
I have
I
Pitts.
mean, you can't say Pitts, but that's kind of where I lean.
Kincaid's been pretty colossally disappointing too.
They're both bad. They're kind of the same. Pitts came in with more hype, but I think Kincaid was initially a bigger disappointment because Pitts had the huge first
Let
year,
me read
right?
this tier because in consensus
Okay.
rankings, at least this is now the next tier, which is Dalton Kincaid, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelsey, Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Dallas Goedert, Isaiah Likely, Jake Ferguson. That runs from tight end 11 to tight end 18. So like I kind of alluded to, both of you guys have players in this tier ahead of at least one player in the tier above in terms of the consensus rankings. You both have Pitts higher than consensus, even if we're kind of dancing around him as the topic.
He's still 24, man. And I know people have
Yeah,
this unbelievable level of animus toward Kyle Pitts, but man, like
it's
it,
deserved.
it, it is kind of, but like he had the big rookie year, an injury marred second year, kind of working his way back from the injury third year. Last year, you could, if you're really digging for excuses, say was his first year in Zach Robinson's offense. I mean, it is definitely crossroads time for Kyle Pitts in 2025. And like, if you're still on this rickety bandwagon, like you are fleeing it if it doesn't happen for him in 2025. And I guess I'm still on the rickety bandwagon and holding on for dear
Well,
life.
well, let,
Bandwagon is missing a wheel. There's sparks flying
Pretty
behind
much,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
yeah. Let me ask you this, Fitz. I almost called you Pitts. Pat Pitts Morris over here. Do you have Kyle Pitts 7th amongst tight ends in Dynasty? Is that a reflection of you think there's a very clear top 6 and there's not a great option for tight end 7? Or is that you kind of planting your flag and saying, no, I do think this guy is deserving of being, setting aside the other competition in general? I think tight end 7 is a good spot for a guy where he is, what we've seen production, his age. Is a reflection of the people around him or of Kyle Pitts himself?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big ledge from 6 to 7. There's no question about it. Like, I think there's a chasm between those. So that is mostly it. I just feel like Pitts still maybe has significantly more upside than a lot of the other guys in tier 3 for me.
Yeah. The other guy that you guys, there's only 2 players in this tier that you are both ahead of consensus on. One of them is Kyle Pitts. The other one's Isaiah Likely. And he's tied in 15 for you, Bogman, tied in 10 for Fitz. He tied in 17 in the consensus rankings on ECR. I tend to agree. Like, this is somebody that you need to be patient with this year, although it wouldn't stun me if he has a true breakout this year. But even if you think like, okay, he and Andrews split enough of the workload, or Andrews is the clear 1 and he's the clear 2 this season, I just think it's so like they are both free agents after this year. I think it's really likely. I think it's likely that Likely is the one that 6th round in Baltimore. But even if he doesn't, wherever he goes, he's going to be tight end 1. He is so talented. He's really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. He's really good at going up and high pointing the ball. Like, I just think Likely is a stud receiver. And I love Fitz that you have him as a top 10 dynasty tight end right now, even with the uncertain workload this year. Bogman, you're a little bit lower. You've got him at tight end 15, but again, still ahead of consensus. And that's where I
Yeah.
think we want to be, is ahead of consensus on a guy like Likely who's on the upswing.
I agree, and I think the thing with him is there are multiple possibilities, kind of like the stuff I said with Bryce Young. It's where is he going to end up? Is he going to go to an air raid system? Love him and something like that. Pair him with pair him with Jaden Daniels in Washington and just watch him shine. That would be awesome to see. But he also could re-sign with the Ravens. I don't know where he's going to end up being. And he's also one of those guys that you see the upside. I just don't know if he's ever going to be the one to push over the hump. So do I think he's really good? Yes. Do I think he's worthy of a selection specifically in a tight end premium league? Absolutely. But I do think there is on occasion too much negativity unlikely and almost too much positivity. So I'm slightly above consensus. I'm not going to go much higher than that.
I am more along the lines with Fitz. I mean, a year from now, we might be looking at, we know Lamar loves tight ends. We know the Ravens love tight ends. there's not a great, like, red zone receiving threat amongst the receivers. It is the tight ends, if they're not running the ball, that they like to throw to. He'll be 26 years old a year from now, and possibly the clear tight end one with an elite quarterback. Like, I think a year from now, there's a chance he is a top 5 or 6 dynasty tight end. Like, that is how much I believe in the talent and the potential for the situation to look awesome. So I think tight end 10, like I said, for you, Fitz, it's aggressive, but I love it.
Yeah, and it's fine if he wants to re-sign with the Ravens as long as Andrews doesn't also re-sign with the Ravens. And I
Exactly.
think we had talked about this on another show, Worm. Like, if you take a look at I want to say it's around 9 games that Likely has played in his career without Mark Andrews, take his numbers from those 9 games and prorate them over a full NFL season. It works out to like 850 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Not bad. We'll take it.
He's a good player, and getting better, I think, every year so far. He's talented and growing. Like there's just no reason for me that he should be behind like Dallas Goedert, Jonnu Smith, Travis Kelce at his age, Evan Ingram. Like, I know
Yeah,
there's
silly.
excitement for him, so maybe I can see the case, but like, I just think Likely's too low.
Agreed.
When-
I mean, you're not going to get big numbers from him
probably not
in all
this year,
probability,
but
not in 2025.
yeah. Some of these veterans, before we move off this tier, guys like Travis Kelce, who's obviously the oldest guy here, Jonnu Smith, Dallas Goedert, they're both born in 95, so they're 30 or almost 30. Jake Ferguson's a little bit younger, but he kind of feels like a veteran. He's at the bottom of this tier consensus. Any of these older guys, Fitz, that you're at all interested in?
Yeah, Kelce for 1 year if I'm making a title run. I know it, it's the scary number with him is being below 10 yards per catch. But I mean, still a lot of catches, like a lot of catches, 90 plus. And I still think he's going to be involved in their offense. So I don't want to bury him just yet. And I know the touchdown count was low last year too. I think he gets back to like 6 or 7. I feel better. I would prop you Travis Kelce against Trey McBride for touchdowns for this year too, if you want to
I don't want to
change the
do that
terms.
one. I don't want to do that one. No, I
Kelce
don't.
hasn't really done much
But
with the touchdowns lately, though.
he hasn't, but it's his last year. Mahomes knows that, and Andy Reid knows that. So they might design a couple plays to get him in the end zone a little bit more. So no, I'll Dikembe Mutombo that bet. Let's stick to our over under 7. That's fine on that one. But you're right, Werman. In talking about the veterans here, I think with a guy like Jonnu Smith, it's what is he in Pittsburgh with Freiermuth and where is he next season, right? Same thing with Dallas Goedert. Like we talked, there was all kinds of trade rumors during the draft about Dallas Goedert. Maybe he was going to be moved, and that didn't end up happening, right? So where is he beyond this season? It's great to be in Philly now, but if he's in Carolina next year, is that way worse? Is it better? We'll see where he is. Dallas Goedert's the same deal. David Njoku gives me worry because look what the Browns did when they had him and Harrison Bryant. All they did was let him block. And now they drafted Fannin, who's not really a tight end, but he's that slot option. He might take away from David Njoku overall. So I have worries about these older veterans in general. So I probably won't be filling my roster with many of them.
This month, if you want a chance to win a signed James Cook Bills jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any video, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. All right, guys, quick thoughts in tier 4, then we'll get out of here. Runs from Pat Freiermuth at tight end 19, then Mason Taylor, Cade Otton, Elijah Arroyo, Hunter Henry, Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin Jr., Brenton Strange, Cole Kmet, and then ends with Jatavian Sanders at tight end 28. Does anybody stand out here? I do like the rookies. I'm very interested in guys like Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, like to varying degrees. I want to be invested in these guys in Dynasty, and I think at least one of them is going to break out, and I'm actually excited about all 3 of those guys. They're definitely the ones I'm interested in most in this group. Like, I'm not really caring that much about Pat Freiermuth now that Jonnu Smith is there. Cade Otton's never really put it all together. Hunter Henry is a million years old. Cole Kmet now has Colson Loveland there. Jatavian Sanders didn't do much as a rookie. Like, there's a lot of question marks, and then there's the rookies where you just kind of feel like there's some upside. Bogman, do you see it similarly, or are you interested in some of these non-rookies?
I actually kind of like everybody here. This is what makes this group fairly strong, right? The tight ends anyway. Let's start with the rookies. Like Mason Taylor, I didn't even like Mason Taylor coming into the draft, but I have him. I'm high on him now. And out of this group, he is my highest ranked player because he goes into such a good situation. He's there with Garrett Wilson and nobody else. Like, who's going to be your number 2 target on this team? It's probably going to be Brees Hall, honestly. So it's Wilson, it's Brees Hall, and then not a lot after that. It's Reynolds and Lazard and a bunch of vets. So I think Mason Taylor could come in and immediately have a big role. And I think Terrence Ferguson, I don't know how much he's going to do this year. It may be like a donut most weeks for you this year for Terrence Ferguson, but Higbee's 100 and he's coming off injuries, right? He's not going to be around forever. So I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for him to make an impact there too. Harold Fannin is interesting. There's a lot of love for Brenton Strange. I'm not as high on it because I think Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas eat up so many targets and the running backs. I don't know what's going to be left for Strange, but his talent is strong. Fannin is teetering. He can go one way or the other. I think Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith's a free agent next year. I think we've cut him down a little bit too much. I think I'm pretty positive on a lot of these tight ends, which makes this whole group kind of just wait and take one of them to me.
I think if I'm looking at a non-rookie in this group, my favorite value is actually Strange. I do think I like him better than you, Bogman. Fitz, when you're looking at this group, is it the rookies or bust, or are there some of these other guys that you're interested in?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in all of them too, for the most part. It's just a really intriguing tier, and I'd even add Aronde Gadsden the second to this group, who got some glowing reviews out of the Chargers OTAs.
He's a wideout, but he's going to qualify at tight end.
Yeah,
We like
and,
that.
like other guys, like second-year guys, Theo Johnson and Ben Sinnott could almost be included at the back
Ben
end of this
Sinnott,
group.
yes.
But man, I'm just like the one who really fascinates me is Harold Fannin. Anytime a tight end leads all college pass catchers in receptions and receiving yardage, like
set the tight end record ever in college
you've
football.
got my attention for sure. And I know he's not in a great spot with the Cleveland quarterback situation and David Njoku ahead of him, but like I've got Fannin on one of my dynasty teams. I'm really anxious to see where his career goes.
I really like Ferguson. I love the draft capital the Rams gave him. If he becomes the like full-time main tight end in this offense, I just think the upside's actually really high for him. I don't think he should be tight at 24. You guys both have him in the teens. I might have liked him better. I probably like Mason Taylor better. The opportunity is so obvious in Dynasty, but amongst these other rookies in this range, obviously not talking about Loveland and Warren, but amongst the other rookies here, I think Ferguson's my favorite.
Yeah. If Sean McVay decides he likes him, I mean, we could have Ferguson as a top 10 tight end a year from now in Dynasty.
It would not stun me if a year from now he's inside like the back end of tier 2 in Dynasty tight end rankings. That's how into him I am. But yeah, it's an interesting group of names. I think we can go ahead and wrap up there. Obviously, like the deeper you get, like in Dynasty tight ends, these are just flyers. So you guys already mentioned like Gadsden and Sinnott and some of these other names that you would have some degree of interest in, but I don't think we need to dive deep into anybody else. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. We went a little long anyway, which is fine because we hit on so many players. But yeah, this is it for our Dynasty rankings and tiers. I always love doing this series with you guys. It's a very fun conversation to have. So if you guys missed the running backs and receivers version of the show, we did those the last couple of weeks. So everybody should be sure to check those out as well. If you want to hear what the three of us think about players really across the board, we pretty much hit on every name we could, at the least reading them out loud at the very least one time. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up for Bogman and Fitz. I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.